Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you don't know already, this whole video is going to be about black-eyed children and the urban legends surrounding black-eyed kids. This is something that is really scary to me. I don't know what it is about horror films and children, but that combination is just a little terrifying. So I'm gonna go through some of the theories on why black-eyed children might exist, or if they even exist at all. And then I'm gonna go through some sightings that I've picked out for y'all that are extra creepy. So I'm curious to see what you guys think about this, and I want to know if any of you have had your own sightings of black-eyed children, or if you think that they exist, or where exactly you think black-eyed children come from. I'll be reading your comments, so let me know. And if you like anything that is spooky and scary or beauty related, you're gonna love this account because I do a lot of makeup story time stuff, and I talk about everything scary, and I even go ghost hunting sometimes. So if you like all that stuff, please subscribe. The other thing is, I think a lot of you are probably going to be waiting for me to peel off my skin, so I figured we would just do that together over here. That video of Zoe was so freaky, and I just felt like the close-up kind of was a good representation of where I was going with the spooky video. Okay, I swear, if this isn't satisfying, I'm gonna actually be so pissed. I think once I get like a little bit of it, it'll start to go. Let's see. Oh, this is so satisfying. I need to do my whole face next time. Can you guys hear that? Welcome to my latex ASMR. I feel like there's more. It's underneath my eyes too. Well, I hope that wasn't too anticlimactic. You can see how red my skin is now underneath. I don't think that I have a latex allergy or anything, but my skin is definitely really sensitive to that stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and start to take off this foundation and see if I can work with this and keep this makeup on for my date tonight. Okay, I just redid my makeup. I actually need to get ready for a date, so I'll be back in a little bit. Hey guys, okay, we're back on a different day. Sorry about that little break there. I had to go on a date, and now it's 2 days later, and I'm sitting down to finish the rest of this very spooky video. And I'm really excited to get into more details with you guys about black-eyed children. Black-eyed children are these paranormal creatures that are said to resemble children around the ages of 6 to 16. They're supposed to have pale skin, black eyes, and are reportedly seen out hitchhiking. They'll come knock on your door, and some encounters even see them as beggars. And there's a lot of theories surrounding what they could be. Are they vampires? Are they aliens? Are they something paranormal? Or are they demons? It's important to note that we don't exactly know whenever the black-eyed children urban legend got started. The earliest that we see is in the 90s. However, there's stories that date back so much further than that. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard this conspiracy theory about urban legends, but it's a theory that once you believe in something, or once something is put out on the internet, then it becomes true. It's almost like we're manifesting something. So everyone coming forward on the internet with experiences of seeing black-eyed children may have just created it into being a real thing, which is really strange to think about. I sometimes wonder, because we're so connected by the internet now, if maybe that's what's brought everything together, because it's like you don't hear these stories about, you know, back in like the 30s or before that or whatever. But I do wonder if some of this stuff has been going on for a lot longer than we realize. When you think about it, the internet is like fairly recent. Like, us all being able to connect and bond over stories and create relationships online is very recent in the grand scheme of time. So I definitely wonder if maybe this has just been the first time we've all been able to connect on these sightings, and they've been going on since the beginning of time. It's definitely really weird to think about. It's also really important to note though that around the 80s and 90s, kids in horror movies just exploded. Honestly, there were so many different examples of that. You had a child being possessed in The Exorcist. You had a child being the spawn of Satan in Rosemary's Baby. Or in The Omen, you had a child being the devil himself. So this could have all just added fuel to the fire and made black-eyed children just all that scarier for people because of the fact that they were children. But why is the fact that they're children just so scary? Other than horror movies pushing them, what are some other reasons that this could be? It's often argued that the Oedipus complex by Freud has something to do with it. The Oedipus complex, and I hope I'm saying that right, basically talks about the unconscious part of the mind where the child wants to murder the parent. So not only are people struggling with this envy, they're also struggling to want to murder the parent. Not that I wanted to become a parent or anything like that. You know the girl on TikTok that anytime she sees like another fact on why she shouldn't become a parent, she'll add it to her notes list? I feel like that could be one. That could definitely be one. The other psychological aspect is Peter Pan syndrome, which locates a child's desire to kill out of fear of growing up. Which, honestly, I feel like Peter Pan is just such a dark book anyways. And then the other aspect that makes black-eyed children just so terrifying is what? Their black eyes. Eyes are known to be windows to the soul, so what do you do if you can't track where people are looking, or if they're looking anywhere or looking nowhere at all? Tracking eye movements is an evolutionary social mechanism. So the fact that it's just so obscure and we don't know where they're looking at, that just adds to how terrifying these children really are. And throughout years and years of history, I'm gonna put some images around me. Black eyes have been shown as demonic possession, or that a demonic presence is around, or there's a certain lack of control. Well, and then there's the conspiracy that black-eyed children are just aliens trying to call Earth home. And many ghost investigators even believe that they're aliens. There's also some UFO lore saying that they're these alien children hybrid kind of thing, which I don't know, maybe. But it's possible that that's why they can't quite get the depiction of a human right, because it's aliens' idea of what a human might look like or a human might sound like. It's like mimicking something in order to be let in. I don't really know, like, what does an alien do once it's let in? Is that whenever they probe you? I don't know. That's a frightening thought. Okay. The other thing that they might be is vampires, which I think is really interesting. The Cullens look a little bit different here, which it could be why they have dark eyes, pale skin, and a lot of the encounters describe them as coming in like colonial wear or Renaissance wear. They could be vampires that have been alive for hundreds of years. And I guess the goal with that theory is that they would just be trying to, I don't know, convert you to being a vampire or drink your blood, or, you know, you could have your own modern Twilight movie plot twist. The other theory is that, of course, obviously, they're ghosts. I wonder if there's somewhere nearby or somewhere that we're gonna go on a future ghost trip where black-eyed children sightings have happened. That would be a really interesting encounter to have. Imagine having that on YouTube, catching that and showing you guys. I mean, like, I found one interviewed with a black-eyed child. And they're just like trying to take my soul the whole time. But yeah, I feel like this theory is a little bit basic with them being ghosts because I don't know, like, why would something that has passed over to the other side be presenting itself in that way? What would be the purpose of a ghost to do that? Unless, of course, which is my theory, it's a demon. I really think the aspect of them having to be invited inside, just like you have to let a demon in order to take over your life, it's reminiscent of the same thing. That's why I think they could be demons just portraying themselves as children, something that has never been alive at all. And people have reported long-term effects after sightings of black-eyed children. Some people have reported agoraphobia, which is the fear of leaving your house, and even experiencing night terrors afterwards. Okay, hopefully this doesn't flake off my skin and I can look cute for work. But no matter what, this is still considered an urban legend, and many people consider this no different than Bigfoot, but I don't know. I kind of feel like Bigfoot exists too. Do you guys believe in Bigfoot? Do you guys believe in the Loch Ness Monster? Do you guys believe in like the basic ones, you know? So let's go ahead and get into some stories about sightings of black-eyed children. And these are freaky, so just prepare yourself. So people also call black-eyed children or black-eyed kids BEK, so I might say that as like an abbreviation, just FYI. But this story was posted and it happened on Halloween. And it says, "This is so funny. I had never heard of black-eyed children before my incident. So I came here to post my story, and the first story I see is about BEK. Weird. Let me preface this by saying that I'm no means a writer. I'm just a domestic engineer living in North Texas. Also, I don't believe in the paranormal, ghosts, demons, aliens, whatever. However, I did have an event happen to me this Halloween that I have to admit has me scratching my head. This is my first post on Reddit, and I'm sorry to say I'd never even heard about it until today. I told my best friend about the incident, and she told me if I didn't post it, she would. So here I am. So it had been a slow trick-or-treat night in our neighborhood that evening, which is pretty odd in and of itself. We usually have kids from different areas dropped off at ours and have constant parades at our door. That night, I'd say we had no more than 8 to 10 groups of kids come by the entire night. It was 9:30 p.m. and my husband and I were sitting in our family room watching some of those ghost shows based on supposedly actual events. Like I said, I don't believe in stuff, but I do like a good ghost story now and then. And it was Halloween and all. We didn't have any activity at the door for over half an hour and it was getting late, so I decided to turn off the porch light. And we let our dog Chloe out of her crate. Chloe is an American bulldog and she's very docile. We only put her in her crate because we're afraid she'd try to get out and play with all the kids. And we didn't want to have to chase after her down the street. Also, we didn't want her to scare any of the kids because she might look a little intimidating. So I turned the light and let Chloe out and she followed me back to the couch and laid down at my feet. It was getting close to about 10 p.m. when my husband decided that he'd had enough fun for the night and was going upstairs to take a shower and get ready for bed. After all, it was a Thursday and he'd have to get up early the next day. My teenage son was out with his friends at a local haunted house and wasn't expected to be back for another hour or so. That left me alone on the couch with Chloe. Now, just because I don't believe doesn't mean that these shows don't freak me out a little bit. And being alone watching, I'd have to say I was kind of on edge, as it were. It wasn't long after I heard the upstairs water of the shower turn on when there came a light knock, knock, knock at the front door. My initial reaction was, what the hell, really? It's almost 10 p.m. Go home. But soon an uneasy feeling came over me. Why the knock? Our doorbell glows. And without the porch light on, it would be extra obvious to anyone there. I paused, but I really couldn't just ignore it. Our front door has a big Belv glass panel, and anyone right at the door could see in enough to see someone in the family room watching TV. It would be pretty rude of me just to sit here and not answer it. Again from the door. I glanced down at Chloe and she was gone. My gaze followed her usual path to the door, expecting her to be on her way there as she normally does, but nothing. She wasn't there. I stood up and looked around the room better and found her crouching by the back door like she wanted out. However, she never asked to go out like that. She always comes and licks my hand or puts her head onto my knee. This was totally out of character for her, and I have to say it heightened my anxiety. Chloe, crate, I said. She just turned to the back and looked at me like, hell no, lady, I ain't moving. I yelled to my husband, but he was already in the shower and I knew there was no chance of him hearing me. About that time, a car drove down our street and cast just enough light on the door where I could see the silhouettes of 2 small children through the glass. I instantly felt relief. It was just some kids, probably a couple of my neighbors on their way back home and wanted to stop by and show me their costume or something. I headed to the door and looked back to make sure Chloe wasn't going to follow. What a great watchdog, I thought to myself as she just sat there. I turned on my porch light when I got to the door and sure enough, I see through the glass that it was a couple of pretty small kids. A little late for such young ones, I thought. And I began to wonder what kind of parents would let their kids run the streets late at night. I only opened the door just enough where I could block Chloe's escape if she decided to grow some balls, which was only about 2 feet. What struck me immediately as odd was the kids weren't wearing any costumes. They were in normal street clothes. They didn't say trick or treat, and I began to feel very uneasy again. It was a boy and a girl. The girl to my left was older, I'd say about 11 or 12. I could tell she was blonde, but I couldn't make out any distinct features as our lights are from high above and on the columns of the front porch, so most of the light was coming in from behind them. And I had not opened the door wide enough for any of the light inside to hit them directly. The boy was younger and stood about a foot shorter, I'd say 8 or 9, and he looked to have light brown hair. The girl very politely spoke up, "Ma'am, can we please come inside and use your phone to call our mom?" As she spoke, something from the pit of my stomach was telling me something was wrong. What kid, even at this age, doesn't have a cell phone nowadays? I can remember the last time anyone had asked to use my home phone. I said, don't you have a phone of your own where you could call your mom? This is where things got really weird. Both kids turned and looked at one another like they were going to say something to each other, but neither of them spoke. They both turned back to me and the girl said, "Ma'am, my cell phone battery doesn't have any charge left in it. Can we please come inside and call our mother? We're alone out here and my brother is scared." Girl, do not let them in. And I have to admit, there were two competing feelings going on inside of me. The first of that was my mama heart that wanted to help these two small children get back to their mom. The other was a sinking feeling in my gut that was keeping the other feeling at bay. It was then I noticed that during the short conversation, I'd already opened the door a few extra inches, which I was completely unaware of doing. I stopped and said, honey, why don't you give me your mother's name and number and I can call her myself? Another pause and they looked at each other again. After a short moment, they turned back to me and the girl said, ma'am, my little brother has to use your bathroom. Can we please come inside while you call our mom? And with that last statement, the little girl moved closer towards the door like she was going to walk in by me. As she did, she stepped into the light coming from inside the house and I got my first real good look at her. Solid, jet black eyes. That's all I could see. That motherly instinct was gone and replaced by terror I don't think I've ever felt in my life. I could feel every hair on my arm and my back and my neck standing at attention. I closed the door to where my face was just able to stick out. The little girl stopped again, pleaded, ma'am, please. We're really scared and alone out here. We have to come inside. Please help us. Then, like on cue, both kids began to whimper and cry. That's when my fear took over and I shut and locked the door. I'll call your mom if you give me the number, I shouted through the door, but I'm not letting you in the house. I could still see them there on the porch, just staring at me through the glass pane. Part of me wanted to run upstairs to my husband. The bigger part of me didn't want to lose track of where they were. That would have freaked me out more to not know where they were. After what seemed like forever, but probably just a few seconds, I decided to call my neighbor that lives across the street. As I made my way to the side table by our couch, I glanced back at the door. Chloe was nowhere to be found. We later found her in a guest room under the bed. When I got to the phone and started looking for his contact info, it was only then the kids stepped away from the door and began to walk to the street. As they did, I walked to the door to get a better look at where they went. Still not calling my neighbor. If you get close enough to the glass, you can see out enough to make out people's shapes, but you can't see much detail. Of course, standing that close to the door would make it pretty obvious to anyone outside looking in. From the door, I could still see that the kids were standing under the street lamp nearest to my house, staring at me. As I lifted my phone to the ear after calling, only one of the kids started walking down our street. I met my neighbor out under the lamp once he was out there, but the kids were nowhere to be seen. Like I said, I don't believe in any of this stuff and had never even heard of black-eyed kids before talking to my friend. What I have to think is these kids were just pranking people on Halloween night. But I will say this for them, they were good, really good at it. They scared the living out of me and my dog. Yeah. Let's get into another story. Okay, so this next one is called Bus Encounter. So it says I was riding the bus back home after work and it was about 1 a.m. I'm a security guard and I often work odd hours. So I'm sitting there and this guy gets on, sits across from me. He was wearing a suit, had a briefcase, and a regular guy looking to be in his 20s. And that's really interesting because I don't normally hear about a black-eyed child being in their 20s. What struck me about him at first was that he was chewing a cigar, not smoking it. You can't smoke on the bus. So I was just looking at him while he stared out the window and chewed a cigar, and all of a sudden he turned and looked at me. His eyes were pitch black. My heart started beating like a mad motherfucker and I felt my throat rising. I was starting to panic and I had no idea why. I was just terrified of this guy. Then he grinned at me and his teeth were covered in tobacco bits and brown juice. The cigar clamped between them. I almost screamed, but instead I had the presence of mind just to get up and take a seat right behind the driver. I calmed down a bit after that, but I kept an eye on him. He ended up chatting with some girl that got on and they were still talking when I got off. I later convinced myself that he was just trolling me and having fun with a pair of contacts, but now I just wonder. That story to me is so odd because again, it's like they're trying to mimic some sort of human behavior, but can't quite get it right. So instead of smoking the cigar, he was chewing it. Okay, let's get into another one. So the last one I'm going to be talking about today is called No, You Won't Be Calling Anybody. The incident took place 13 years ago. I just moved to a new city with my wife. We were small town newlyweds from the Midwest. We moved across country to one of the biggest cities in the Southwest so I could attend graduate school. Being naive and new to city living, I habitually answered the door without a second thought. Never again after this. The first thing I'm already getting chills from this. The first thing that should have tipped me off to the peculiarity of the situation was the fact that someone was knocking at 6 in the morning. I would not be up at 6. The second thing that should have dawned on me is this kid had to reach over a rather tall patio gate to unlatch and open it. The knock at the door was startling. My wife and I were getting ready for work. a pretty normal routine. The moment I opened the door, I was overtaken with an inexplicable sense of fear. To this day, I can picture him. Teenager, average height, average build, knee-length black leather coat, short black hair, and sunglasses. The sunglasses at 6 a.m. struck me as odd, and even more odd, he was eating an apple. He was very polite and asked if he could come in and warm up. I said no, closed the door, and slid the security chain into place. I feel like this guy right here would survive a horror movie. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. A moment later, another knock. I opened the now chained door. Okay, I take it back. He might not survive. And before I could speak again, he asked if he could come in and warm up. No, I replied and attempted to close the door. Before the door could shut, he put his hand out, stopping the door on its hinges. He looked directly into my eyes, still wearing sunglasses, and said, "Can I at least get some ketchup for my apple?" What the heck? F that, I replied, a little bit confused. "Get the hell out of here. My wife is calling the police." He takes a moment to let this information sink in, lowers his glasses, revealing his eyes as black as obsidian, and says, "No, you won't be calling anybody." At that moment, I force the door closed, lock it, and call out to my wife. She is scared to death, hiding in the bedroom, all jacked up on adrenaline. I rip the curtains back to look out the window next to the door, and he's gone. Absolutely no trace of him. I go outside on the patio and check the gate. It's still latched from the inside. That was effed up, I think to myself, and as I turn to enter the house, I notice a half-eaten apple lying on the ground. Yeah, and there are so many more stories. It's pretty endless. So if you guys want to hear more stories about them or want more theories, or if you guys have theories or have your own stories, please reach out to me. Please comment below and let me know. I hope you guys enjoyed this video today, and let me know if there's any other urban legends that you might want me to talk about or anything spooky, scary topic that you want me to cover on here. This is definitely really strange. And I do really wonder if on a future ghost hunting experience, this is going to be something that we encounter. That would be really freaky. That would be, I don't know if I would ever do another ghost hunting video again if that happened. But thank you guys again so much for joining me. I appreciate you all and I love you all, and I hope you have an amazing day. Stay safe. Don't open your doors for any black-eyed children. And I love you all so much. Mwah!